advise me to do it to diversify my income.
Alright, so evening everybody. Hi everybody out here on Instagram and YouTube.
Right? And YouTube, yeah.
Alright, so first and foremost, Omaro, thanks for having me. I appreciate you inviting me to join. Of course, I have to give all of the disclaimers. So one, all of the views that I expressed this evening are my opinion, and nothing that I kind of put forward is really to be interpreted as investment advice. I advise everybody before making an investment decision, please speak to a licensed financial advisor, and you'll know their license because they're supposed to have a plaque from the Financial Services Commission. So really what we're going to be doing tonight is kind of somewhat of an academic exercise that will have real life applications. And really the objective is to have everybody who is tuned in learn something that they can apply in real life respecting the financial situation, right? So to answer your question in a less direct way, because you're asking me now, we stack him and all of that. I mean, you can find that out by having a conversation with your broker. But boy, as soon as I got into it.
So guys, I should have actually said tonight that Ramon is actually on call, right? He's a guy that never stops working, just like Wall Street never sleeps. Ramon is always working. So what I'm doing, while we're building up the traction, I'm going to take questions ahead of time, right? For persons who want to know which stocks to invest, which sectors to invest in, we can seek to explain or to clarify for you all those concerns that you might have right now, such as I have a few that I want to ask you, right? And certainly you do too. So Ramon is the VP of Asset Management and Head of Research, right? It's a very prominent investment brokerage firm. So I see the hearts going up. Definitely thumbs up, guys. Keep the love, keep the energy going. We want to know though, what questions you might have for Ramon in terms of investment. So you can send in your questions now. I will ask my studio engineer Anthony to pin them, and I'll definitely ask Ramon to take those questions in turn. So is there one question? No? See the hearts going. I always love the hearts, special place in my heart. So in the meantime, guys, want to know, a very interesting clash happened last week, right, between two legendary rivals, right? I've heard persons saying, boy, it's a tie and the culture win, but yes, if two Jamaican artists are clash, eventually somebody has to win. And as I said before, the culture will have to win because it's a Jamaican. Will have to win, right? But in your views, who took the clash Saturday? We're talking the versus clash between BIINI and Bounty. Who you say had a slight edge, and what was the highlight at the moment for you? So,
well, I'm not a girl. BIINI take the clash.
So BIINI take the clash.
BIINI take the clash.
Why you say BIINI take the clash?
Music. BIINI have a thing where I get them sugar. I see on the belly.
Alright, so student engineer Anthony said BIINI take the clash. Tell me who you said take the clash. Anthony, there's one question coming in from Danzil. She said she would love to know how to make money with no money. Right? How to make money with no money. Right? You can definitely ask Ramon about that. Danzil again saying Bounty are the better set. Who else said Bounty take the clash on Saturday versus battle? Right? It's a phenomenal battle. It's definitely one for the books. It's a historic moment in Jamaican culture, in dancehall culture, right? It's a never before seen clash, because usually from what I've seen just doing my research and versus posts, they normally just stay at home, drink wine and clash, but they have never seen a clash like this before, and definitely they have never gotten the responses, they have never gotten that much views before, and they have never ever seen two giants, Jamaican giants, dancehall giants, go at it like that almost in some instances, physically. Because I've seen some instances where both guys are actually pushing each other. You get me? And then I say, boy, you know, say, this look like it, and it clash about end. And even at the high point when the police came in and said, boy, you know, you have to lock it down because curfew is approaching. What do you think about the clash? What do you think about the clash, people? Who you said at the clash?
Financial entertainment, right? Financial version also. So do a little bit about entertainment.
No, Leggy, I see where you're asking if this is a clash segment. We're just warming up our viewers, building up the numbers in the meantime. We're just keeping people entertained because remember also, this is not just financial entertainment, right? This is financial version also. So we do a little bit about entertainment and we do a little bit about education, right? So we see Robbie joining in right now. Here we are going, Robbie. We man him stay. Am I right? So this week, just a little icebreaker, we're talking about the clash. We said who win? We know the culture win ultimately, but who you say had the slight edge, right? And we also are waiting questions from the viewers. Want to know what questions they might have for Ramon regarding investment, because this week we're on the topic of investing amidst COVID-19. What are some of the gems you can look to take? Alright? So, Ramon, while you are on, I think you were on the question.
Oh yes, I was. Alright, so before I go back to that question, I overheard Omaro asking about the clash and who took a marginal victory. Well, the victory wasn't marginal, and Bunty cleared the win.
Bunty cleared, I'm bridging, Alright, why did I say Bunty win? I don't want to give my views.
Well,
so I saw an article from Billboard declared being on the link, but Billboard hardly is an expert on dancehall and dancehall culture, right? Bunty win for several reasons. But after him already win, the dub make him win even more.
Oh God. So you must say Bunty win long before.
Long before
him even introduce the dub.
Long before the dub.
They're gonna make him go and finish. He might have a lot more to say.
Yeah man, so I mean the essence of it is that even when it came down to the time when they told him a DJ, as he normally does, Killer really take the spotlight.
And now like still closer towards the end, we don't say boy tie. Or even if it ever end right now on the note where the police came in, BIInstitute would take it. Right? For obvious reasons. I think he had more hits, more punch, but guess what? At that point still, Bunty was more on point in terms of delivery. Him have more off the cuff ad-libs. Everything the man said just shot that night. I don't know, they have a different energy that night. I don't know for any synergy, I just White Rum sponsored by Island Beverages.
You know, Bunty is an innocent man. So.
But sense a different energy out of Bunty, definitely. And when he dropped the dub, I said, done. Then we said, BIInstitute come in on the man intro and start DJ, you know. A different thing that you know, Bredren.
Yeah. No, it was very good overall. It was very good overall. As you said, the culture ultimately won. Yeah. But going back to the original question, and sorry guys, I mean, as Omaro said, like, the world of investments doesn't really sleep, so I am always on call. But you know what this crisis has really taught us. So let me kind of tell a little bit of a story, and I'll be short. The local stock market has been in an uptrend almost, you know, since 2015. 2015, when we were declared by Bloomberg as being the best performing stock market in the world for that year, and then we got it again in 2018. Right? And what that has brought on is a raft of new investors. I mean, since 2013, when Jamaica entered into its latest agreement, or set of agreements with the International Monetary Fund, from an economic perspective, we've really been doing a lot better. So, you know, we've been able to generate more revenue than expenses, which sounds very basic, but Jamaica has struggled with that for a long time. We got our debt somewhat under control. We went from being, I think we went as high as the third most indebted nation in the world by debt to GDP,
and we were steadily moving down that list. And all of that really kind of translated to better company earnings, better business confidence, better consumer confidence, better investor confidence, which has led to this uptrend in the market. And what that uptrend has brought with it, you know, when there is good news, everybody follow. So it has created a whole lot of new investors. A lot of persons have been turned on to the market. They've done very well. They've participated in IPOs and doubled their money and all of that in short spaces of time, right? And they haven't really gotten accustomed to any form of downtrend in the market at all, right? It's really kind of just been straight up. Right?
So they haven't seen that side of the market. That side of the
coin at all. So, you know, resulting from that, what has really happened is that, you know, persons have really thought to themselves that this thing is a one-way thing.
Yeah, it's a one-way street. So what the onset of this crisis is really bringing in or bringing on is the other side of that street, right? Everybody's seeing now that things can go this way and things can go that way, right? And a lot of people are very fearful. So, you know, this time has been really characterized by a lot of fear because of what is happening in real life. You know, there's a virus going around and people are dying, and we're seeing it play out even more so not only in Jamaica but abroad, you know, where the health system in a lot of countries are being overwhelmed by this virus. But that fear is also creeping into the market, into the investor space. Persons have put their money in and put their money to work, and their money has been laid off. And a lot of people in the real economy have been laid off as well. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of that panicking translating to selling, and a lot of the selling is justified because the outlook for a lot of businesses has changed drastically. You know, almost overnight a business had wonderful prospects, and then all of a sudden,
that's not sure answer.
That's so true. So that being said, going back to the original question, you know, what do you do? Broadly, I mean, recessions, downturns have generally represented in history, if you go back to history, have generally represented good opportunities to pick up assets. I mean, if you look back to every downtrend, it has ultimately been followed by another uptrend, right? And investing in stock market and that type of thing is generally a long-term endeavor. You know, there are always opportunities to make money over a short period of time, but ultimately it's a long-term endeavor. That's the, you know, it's like, if you think about it, it's like running a taxi, right? Most of your journeys are generally a certain length, right? But you have sometimes when you get a short journey, and you have sometimes when you get a long journey. It's the same thing with most things in life, and it's the same thing with investing. You know, if you're thinking about the stock market, generally you get better results over medium to long term. Sometimes you get fantastic results in the short term, but they typically aren't sustainable, right? So against that backdrop, you know, what do you do? If you're already heavy in the market, I would say to you, boy, no is not necessarily the time, and heavy meaning as a percentage of your free assets on your own. No might not necessarily be the time for you to be piling in even more. You want to become more constructive and be patient and wait. And then you also might be forced to make some hard decisions about your portfolio. Right? So now is a time where, you know, if you're heavily invested, you want to get constructive, you want to do your reading, you want to review. Are these companies that I'm holding still fundamentally solid and sound? And are the reasons that I invested in them still the same? Right? So if you invested in a company, for example, because you expected that over the next 2 years, tourism was going to be fantastic in Jamaica, for argument's sake. And of course, we know the outlook for tourism has been dampened slightly, right? We kind of hit a reset and we're going to start over. People are going to need a little time to get the confidence to travel as heavily. I mean, a lot of people are still going to come.
On that note, I want to stick up in.
Yes.
I want to ask you your personal outlook.
Well, I mean, you know, again, my personal outlook, I think a lot of industries have hit like a reset. It's going to take time to build back up, and even when we build back up, we're going to kind of build back up to a new norm. in a sense. You're not necessarily going to go back to where you were before, or shoot past where it was before. But my suspicion is that it's going to build up to some percentage of where it was at the heights, right? So to go back to where I was, just to conclude, right? You want to be doing that rigorous review to kind of look and see, well, even though this is a long-term thing, are there any obvious things in my portfolio that really don't make sense anymore, given the expected lasting effects of this crisis? And if you're not so heavy in the market, now may represent a good opportunity for you to start now to figure things out and start to ease into things that were a lot more expensive, that are now cheaper, that may have the chance of really bouncing back sharply after this thing is over.
And I want to ask you say look a little bit cheaper now, right? But does cheap necessarily mean value? Because everything is cheap right now. It's like a yard sale for stocks.
No, agreed. So that's a good point. And when I say cheap, I don't mean the price is just lower. Right? That's important to note. And that's why you really have to get the advice of somebody who is licensed, right? Because they can help, or they should be able to help you to demystify looking past the face then, right? So not because something is $100 and something is $5 mean the $5 is cheap, right? So that's important to note. But in terms of how to kind of find value in the yard sale, I mean, ultimately, you don't have to be an expert in order to have expert type inclinations and senses around these things, right? You really want to, and you don't need to be an economist either, you really want to look for what companies and industries may stand to recover more quickly or recover more sharply once we find our way to the other side of this pandemic, right? Because the fact of the matter is there are very few companies that are benefiting in the face of this pandemic. There are some, right? But there are very few that are benefiting. So you really want to be saying, boy, when things are done, which companies have the zeal to come out on the other side, recovering faster, recovering to become even stronger, right? In these type of times when, there's a recession afoot, stronger companies generally do well. Why they do well? Because they have built up the wherewithal to last, so they have lasting power. Additionally, they have capacity. So when everybody is holding on to their money and nobody is lending, during difficult times, people will always lend to blue chip companies and strong companies. Right? Additional to that, the capacity gives them the ability to absorb their competition. So during the difficult times when the competition who was hot on their heels is struggling, they can step in and buy the competition. Right? And post the crisis come out being this much larger, more sustaining and lasting company. I mean, a lot of companies came out of the 2008-2009 crisis much better set up for the future. Right? The other thing that crisis also do is they help you to prepare for the next one. So if you think about the Jamaican situation, our financial services system has benefited considerably from the lessons that we learned in the 90s. When we went through our own financial crisis locally, a number of banks failed and had to be taken over and all of that. Can you imagine in this modern world? I'm sure a lot of us younger persons, can't imagine the idea of a bank, even a fairly small bank, failing. And that was happening left, right, and center in the 90s. And coming out of that, we really did a lot to ensure that our banking sector became more resilient and had the ability to withstand shocks. Which is why now in the midst of this crisis, our banks are still very firm, very strong, very well capitalized because we learned those hard lessons. So the point of what I'm making is crisis like these really, sometimes strengthen industries, because I'm sure the tourism sector, for example, is going to be learning a lot of lessons around this. So going back to my fundamental point, if you're not so heavy, now is when you want to kind of start a consultation, to build up your shopping list, and maybe start looking at some stuff.
I have a question from you from Missy K. What's your advice for someone invested in companies to get dividends that are now in a temporary dilemma? of BOJ imposing the suspension of dividends?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
So, from all I've read respecting the suspension of dividends in court, it is voluntary. Right? So the holding company groups, or they call them financial holding company designates, have recognized that during this time you have to prioritize liquidity. Right? So it's kind of like, having some money in the bank and taking it and buying a new car when you're not so sure whether you're going to have a job in a couple of months' time. Not the wisest decision. And it's not that extreme for the financial services companies, but basically they're in a position where we're in an uncertain time. Right? While the general base case expectation is that in a couple of months we're going to be in a better place, it's possible that in 6 months we could be in a worse place. Right? So with that uncertainty on the horizon, it's only prudent that in running a financial services group where money is flowing through the group, you have an insurance company and a bank and a brokerage firm, it's complex.
Yeah.
Right? It's not it's closer to rocket science than it is not, right?
Yeah.
So essentially, in collaboration with the BOJ, I suppose these groups are saying, well, it makes sense to hold on to what we have now. So it's a postponement. It's not a cancellation.
It's not an indefinite cancellation. It's a postponement.
Yeah. So it's a postponement where they're saying, well, let's hold on to it, and if things look okay next year, they'll pay you. This year one and next year one.
What?
Naturally, though, there are some people who, because of their age and stage, maybe very reliant on the dividend.
That's what I was just going to touch on.
And the Bank of Jamaica and stakeholders have seemingly heard that cry, right? So you would have seen releases in the public subsequently talking about a scheme where essentially they're contemplating paying dividends to fairly small shareholders. Right? I don't remember what the threshold is. I think it's like if you own less than 1% of the company or something like that. They're contemplating paying dividends to those groups of persons, which should address that issue.
Yeah.
Right? Because I suspect that
the retail would probably own
so if I own 10% of the company of a large financial service group,
that's more institutional.
I might not be relying on the dividend so much to eat.
Yeah.
So that's really it. And that's one of the unprecedented steps that the Bank of Jamaica and by extension the financial services community has taken during this time out of an abundance of caution, just to make sure that we remain stable and that we don't really have a lasting fallout in that sector from this crisis, which is very good. It shows that we've come a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been very pragmatic and forward thinking and proactive. And it's a good look for a country like ours, a smaller country, a developing nation.
Okay. So let me see. I'm not seeing any immediate question, but my question to you is, with the economy slated to reopen on, let's say, a case-by-case basis on a protocol, right? Guided. Which sector do you expect to bounce back faster?
That's a good question. Yeah. So, in terms of which sectors will bounce back fast, I mean, naturally, so guys, what is important to note is that, I always tell people that a good company doesn't always represent a good investment, right? And a bad company could potentially be a good investment. Why is that? The fact is, it's about value and not price. Right? If somebody is selling you a 2020 Benz, right, that's worth $10 million to $60 million, right? Versus somebody selling you a 2007 Toyota Kingfish for free. Right? Naturally, the second one is a better deal. Right? It's not a better car. It's a better deal.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to contemplate, investing in the same way. It's just like when you go to courts and you compare, you say, all right, this TV have these features, but it's 60,000, and that one have that features, but it's 90,000 and worth it. So where you really want to be looking generally, the academic literature will tell you, and the theory will tell you, and history will tell you that you really want to be looking for at the sectors that are most impacted by the crisis, right? So if you look at, for example, how banks would have performed post the financial crisis, I mean, they would have delivered tremendous returns on the way up.
Yeah.
Only the ones that were around after the crisis, right, who actually weathered the storm. So really, you want to be looking at those sectors that have really been hit hard, the services sector. You want to be looking at stronger companies. But you want to make sure that when you're making the investment and you're consulting with your financial advisor, who is supposed to be licensed, right? You guys do the work to make sure that you're not overpaying, right? That's important. Right? That the company's prices are adjusted enough to take account for all the pain that they would have felt during this unprecedented period. And you know, that is adjusted and you know it's in the price. If you don't want to buy it too expensive, right? It's like buying a crash car. Right? You know, a crash car have a value, right? But you don't want to overpay for it. You don't want a situation where when you buy it and you fix it up, you lose. And it's the same thing happening now. So you want to look for the sectors that really getting beaten. Right? So you're talking about tourism, right? And as I said, just services in general. Those sectors related to you know, tourism that would have really been getting hurt. Right?
So, student engineer Anthony, we're gonna go to a short break. Maybe we're gonna get some Bounty and Beanie sounds to keep the energy going. So, persons tuning in just now, we are on our 4th episode. We're trying to get some answers out of Ramon. We're trying to find out what gems we can invest in as millennials or investing as investors on a whole. Right? And we need some direct answers. So please send in the questions.
Bounty kill up on the borderline. Big Mac 11 with no polish, no shine. And we pop it out people that same time. Then they might say, no other word, we not go no further. Bad man not talk from you fi get murder. Another word, blood run like water. Spy out me business, see kill you want me pleasure. Informer dicey, wicked man treasure. Born the Mac 11 and the HK. Mama got me gun in a million and finger pan trigger. Informer see me Glock 19 and stomach. Gunshot and killing at them skin like karma. Jungle is a big boy, the case kill them proper. And when you see police, see you take over. We don't want no argument from the commissioner. No other word, we not go no further. That man not talk from you, we get murder. Another word, just run like water. Chat out me business to kill you want me pleasure. One way or the other, I'm a wicked brother. We gun in a big gun, so we not be a gun. Because me pull out your life like me pull out me liquor. All your people be just like a back to stop. And now you're unidentified, look like a strainer. We down about it, come and go to the greener. From a young farmer, when you can't stay ya. Omaro, your people and your family feel ya. No other word, we not go no further. But man, not talk from if you get